Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray for the recovery of our country. Now, once again, I must confess, I'm completely blown away by the political spin that's being used by the mainstream media. And just to be clear, at this point, I'm specifically referring to the way in which many in the media have been covering the historic peace agreement that just took place there at the White House. You know, it was last Tuesday when the President of the United States met together with the Prime Minister of Israel, as well as the Foreign Minister from the United Arab Emirates, and also the Foreign Minister from Bahrain. And together they signed the Abraham Accord Agreement, which is an incredible accomplishment. Now, in order to understand the magnitude of this agreement, it'll help you to know that this is actually the first Gulf country and the third Arab country to have full diplomatic relations with Israel since Israel's declaration of independence back in 1948. And not only that, but this is the first peace agreement between Israel and any major Arab country since 1994. Now, think about that for a moment. What this means is that Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, each of whom failed to keep their campaign promise to move America's embassy into Jerusalem, they also failed to broker a peace agreement between Israel and the surrounding Arab nations. One reason why is due to the fact that they were thinking like politicians rather than like a business-savvy negotiator. In order to prove my point, I would simply remind you about something that John Kerry said back in 2016. Kerry, who at that point was the Secretary of State under the Obama administration, he insisted this, and I quote him, "There will be no separate peace between Israel and the Arab world." Wow. Then he doubled down on this widely accepted belief as he declared, "I want to make that very clear with all of you." I've heard several prominent politicians in Israel sometimes saying, well, the Arab world is in a different place now. We just have to reach out to them. We can work some things with the Arab world and we'll deal with the Palestinians. And no, 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 and no, he said. Kerry then appealed to the evidence of his belief that there would be no peace agreement as he went on to say this. He says, "I can tell you that reaffirmed within the last week because I've talked to the leaders of the Arab community, there will be no advanced and separate peace with the Arab world without the Palestinian process and Palestinian peace." Everybody needs to understand that that is a hard reality. That's a hard reality? Really? Well, here we are. It's 4 years after he said that. And the president who actually fulfilled his promise to move our embassy into Jerusalem is now also fulfilling his promise to broker a peace agreement there in the Middle East. As we consider this incredible accomplishment, we should take a moment to remember some of the warnings that those who wanted to assure us that Trump's decision to relocate our embassy to Jerusalem would ultimately ruin any possibility of peace there in the Middle East. For example, it was back in May 2018, shortly after the embassy was relocated, when a CNN article had this title. CNN ran this article, "U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem is nail in coffin of peace process." Really? The U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem was a nail in the coffin of the peace process? The author of that article insisted that the United States under Trump doesn't even pretend to be an honest broker, and therefore the president's follow-up appeal to both sides to continue to focus on achieving peace doesn't pass the smell test. Well, here we are, 2 years after the relocation of the embassy, and we're already seeing several Arab nations lining up in order to embrace the Abraham Accord, which has the potential of establishing peace in the broad region of the Middle East. And while you would think that this historic occasion would be cause for celebration, that every American would rejoice over this, there are many who are looking for any reason to cast a shade on this incredible accomplishment. For example, it was last Tuesday when CNN posted an article which was titled, "White House Largely Disregards Coronavirus Precautions During Abraham Accords Signing." Now, I don't even know what to say about this. This news outlet The one that told us that Trump is the one who's tanked the potential for peace in the Middle East, and he did this by moving our embassy to Jerusalem. The same news outlet is now trying to distract us from the fact that they were wrong. They were completely wrong. And they're trying to distract us from this historic event that just took place there at the White House. They would rather that we focus on the fact that these world leaders, who are probably tested for coronavirus, every single day, I can assure you that they were tested right before this meeting, but we have to focus on the fact that they weren't wearing masks when they signed the Abraham Accord, and therefore we can't celebrate. Oh my gosh, listen. If you still consider CNN a reputable source of news, I just don't even know what to tell you anymore. Their spin is so obvious and it's so wrong so often that I don't even know what to say about it. Listen, our president, whether you like him or not, I'm not here to weigh in on whether you ought to like our president or not. Listen, our president just brought the people in the Middle East one step closer to peace. And that's incredible. As we watch more and more Arab nations embracing the Abraham Accord, we can rejoice in knowing that the world stage is currently being set for the second coming of Christ Jesus. And with that being the case, I encourage every Christian, let's rejoice over this. This is great. This is great news because, listen, the Lord is using these leaders to make huge moves, all in the preparation for the rapture of the church and the second coming of Jesus Christ. And with that, I encourage you, Christian, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.